guys, Brooks Anderson back here with another video for y'all. In today's video I have a couple baits I would be throwing right now during the month of May out on Lake Lanier and even into June and some of that later summer transitional period we're about to come up on. I recently just finished my last semester of college, so I'll be putting a ton of time and effort into my YouTube channel fishing out on Lake Lanier this summer and specifically guiding. If you're interested in seeing some of these baits firsthand and kind of how I work these and my approach to everything, I'd love to have y'all out on a trip. This is personally my favorite time of year to guide, and seeing some of those incredible topwater blowups on people's faces is priceless, and it's honestly a great time out there during the summer months on Lake Lanier. But like we said, these fish are kind of in a post-spawn funk right now. They're on the tail end of a herring spawn and kind of making their transitions back into some of those brush piles, some of those humps, and some of those long running points out there in the water. So we'll talk about all that stuff and a couple of the key baits I would have tied on right now. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. Alright guys, so in today's video I have 4 baits right here narrowed down. You've heard me talk about them, but these are baits that will never leave my deck from now all the way into the fall. These are day in and day out producers. There's a lot of other baits that come into play a little bit later in the summer, but these are ones that will be consistent almost every day out there on the water for you. The first and foremost bait I will choose 90% of the time will be a Zoom fluke. Now it seems basic, but the fluke is so powerful because you can fish it at a variety of depths with almost endless rigging options. And I do a lot of nose hooking and wading. I do a lot of crazy stuff to those flukes to reach some of those fish that don't even want to come up right now. So the fluke is definitely one that will day in and day out put fish in your boat and almost be the most consistent option as your first cast over a place to actually hook a fish. So the fluke, if you don't have one, that's a bait that you need tied on for the rest of May and even into the summer. Now another bait right here is the I'm a Skimmer. These are a little bit difficult to get right now due to some supply issues. I know there's kind of some knockoff brands making some, but if you look hard enough you definitely can still get your hands on a few. This bait right here is honestly one of the best herring imitators that I've ever seen when it comes to top water. Its subtle action and profile just almost mimic a herring to a T. This is one I will be throwing still over some of those shallow points and blow-throughs, and honestly some of those shallower brush piles right now. This bait can still get some incredible blow-ups even when these fish are in that funk. They don't want to shoot up, but this is one of those profiles that if they see with the right presentation, they almost can't resist it at times. So I'm a Skimmer, that's number 2. That's an absolute winner and one you will have to have tied on for May and even in June out on Lake Lanier. Now moving into the third bait, this is one you've heard me talk about a lot and a bait I have a ton of confidence in. That's that 125 slow sinking white Seville. They have all types of different crazy colors and patterns like you can see right there. I pretty much keep it simple. If I'm throwing it, it's going to be white. And this is one that if you kind of have some of those overcast conditions, a little bit of wind, this bait can really excel in fishing in open water and even over some of those brush piles. This bait works extremely well right now on some of those shallower points, blow-throughs and shoals. On that tail end of the herring spawn, this is an awesome bait to just cover water with in the morning and put it in front of as many fish as you can. But if you have some really kind of different conditions like with those winds and clouds, this bait can be an absolute winner and draw some really big strikes for sure. Now my last bait right here, you've heard me talk about this a bunch. This is the chug bug. It's no secret out there on Lake Lanier. This bait right here draws some incredible strikes, and it's one I throw for the entire month of June, July, August, September, even in May. But this bait is really going to start picking up in the next coming weeks, and even right now there's something about the sound and the displacement of water that this thing creates over brush piles or even just roaming fish that these spotted bass just cannot resist. And there's a lot of wrong ways to fish it. I typically like to do extremely hard rips and get this bait to spray as much water as possible. It almost looks like I'm saltwater fishing when I'm fishing this bait because I'm ripping it so hard to get it to just spray a ton of water and cause a lot of commotion. I love throwing this bait on those sunny slick days over piles and just fish I see out there roaming on those long running points. So the choke bug would be the fourth one I would not go home without. This thing is an absolute winner for the summertime months out on Lake Lanier. Alright guys, now that we've kind of broken down a few of the baits I would be throwing during this time of year, let's go ahead and talk about some of the areas I would actually target throwing these baits. Like we talked about earlier, these fish are in a post-spawn funk for the majority of the population. There's definitely some still spawning and some fish on a herring spawn in the morning, but the majority of the population of them are kind of almost lethargic and not really wanting to come up and eat and do a whole lot. So what I do to kind of combat this is I really make some of my stops very target oriented. What I mean by that is I'm looking for stopping points or areas as these fish are making transitions out of the creek back onto the main lake. And a lot of these fish just live in creeks and they will slide out to a lot deeper stuff, but the same principle applies as kind of looking on some of those humps and shallower points in the creeks. This time of year I'm catching a ton of fish still shallow, not even on brush, just relating to shoals and shallow points, throwing these baits. Now I really love throwing that fluke right now and kind of sinking it down to a lot of these fish that won't come up over a little bit of that deeper stuff. Those tend to be your bigger fish right now as the day progresses. Now in the morning I'm still trying to run a lot of those shallow blow throughs and shoals and long running points that are really shallow and flat to kind of get the last bit of that herring spawn. There's definitely some fish still relating to that and staying shallow all day long on some of those areas, so those can be another good option. A second option will be kind of some of those shallower brush piles on those areas we just talked about, some of those secondary points and a lot of stuff at the mouth of those major creek arms. Those fish are transitioning back out there to their summer locations, and they'll often set up in big schools on really specific points and honestly just areas that they have to pass by to go back out there. So those are the couple of things that I'll kind of look out for on the water. It's a lot easier to walk you through my approach out there on a guide trip where I'm showing you this is why we're fishing here, these are why these fish are here, and kind of some of the areas and locations that I would choose right now, and kind of help you understand what those fish are exactly doing. So if you're interested in getting out there on the water, check out my website down below. I would love to have you out and go over everything we just talked about firsthand. But really looking forward to bringing y'all some cool videos and some awesome topwater blow-ups in the coming weeks out there on Lake Lanier. So y'all definitely stay tuned for that. We'll have some pretty cool videos coming out shortly. Y'all stay tuned, leave a like and subscribe if this helped you in any way. We'll see y'all.